So welcome to the unimaginable, the part where we now walk into that new unimaginable state. Welcome. Let's get into it. The unimaginable, let's discuss it. The inability to imagine our future evolved self creates a unique kind of existential vertigo that can be both terrifying and exhilarating. There's a term, there's a term in psychology called transformational blindness, which is our inability to imagine who we'll become through significant growth experiences accurately. We can picture external changes, such as wealth, relationships, achievements, but struggle to envision our internal transformation, how our values, perspectives, and very sense of self might evolve. This blindness creates a fundamental leap into the unknown. We are agreeing to becoming someone we can't yet know or understand. I mean, isn't that powerful and terrifying? It's a self we have yet to meet. This is the other thing too, that when you enter this new territory of this unknown self, that you can't possibly imagine who you become, the unimaginable place to enter in the journey of change, you can't possibly imagine your values changing, your perspectives changing. Things that you didn't think you could accept, you will accept. Things that you accept, you no longer accept. And values that you thought were dear to your heart, no longer are. And you might even see them as corrupted moralities. So, it's amazing. It's so enriching to be able to have that fluidity. But of course, you want to have values. You want to have values that you live by, that you walk by. But be fluid in questioning your values. If you question them, honestly question them, and they don't evolve, then hey, you have them. But if you question them honestly, when I say honestly, not from the ego, but from true curiosity and knowledge, when you doubt them and you see that maybe they're corrupted moralities, then you get more solid and grounded values, that you can walk more aligned and more authentically. So, doubt your values. If they're grounded, if they're based in reality, based in your present moment, based in your truth and your authenticity, they will be unmoving. And maybe actually, they will become more clear. But you cannot fully understand values until you live by them, until you breathe, speak, and stand by those values. It's difficult because there's a lot of things out there challenging your values. Do you look the other way when somebody else is suffering? If one of your values is fighting oppression, do you look the other way when you see someone being racist? Or do you step up and say something? No wonder this triggers such profound resistance. It isn't just fear of failure, but fear of profound transformation into unknown versions of ourselves. This transformation requires the necessary dissolution of specific identity structures before new ones can emerge. The kind of ego dissolution proposed by various spiritual and psychological traditions This space between identities can almost feel like a form of non-existence, which then triggers deep survival fears. Oh, absolutely. This place of non-existence, I feel like I may be going through that a bit right now. I think I mean, nothing is linear and doesn't last forever, right? Everything is like, there's these waves that you feel this new sense of self that you don't know or recognize, and then you're back to yourself. So you're never just truly in this place. You're like, oh my God, who am I? You're never like that. But you do feel a sense of, not recognizing yourself. That you're no longer the person you were, but you're not yet the new person you're becoming. And I think I've been going through that a bit. I think in the last couple of months, it's been kind of around. I think I need to change my environment to step, because when you enter into this new, this non-existent state of self, you actually don't connect with the same things you did before. Whether it's your house, your friends, maybe even your partner, your job, things you did for fun, whatever. But you no longer connect to it. It doesn't engage you the same. Conversations just don't engage you the same. So I feel like I've kind of walking into that, and now I'm coming to the other side of it. But I know these things take time. So, but yes, very important. This space between identities is significant to understand, because you must be able to get through this perception of non-existence. It is okay to feel fear, and it is okay to feel lost. That is actually what this space is meant to be. That is what it's supposed to bring. And from there, you gather more wisdom, more resilience, more evolution. You can't skip this place or this state. You can't skip it. It's part of the journey of change. Yes, you need to be able to sit with your discomfort and not react to all situations that would drag you into old habits, whether avoidant, coping, or rage. You have to be able to react differently. You don't want to avoid the situations that trigger this. You want to be able to react differently in the same situation. You have to be able to sit with the discomfort and almost painful state of not reacting to triggers. You must be able to come to understand that emotion that gets triggered and dissolve it all on your own without changing that external thing that triggered you. These triggers are not fancy, I can't even imagine what people think triggers are, but these are your everyday triggers, boring ones. You must take the time to understand them and choose to respond different. Simple things. When someone tells you to do something, when you have to take responsibility, when you see someone that might trigger shame or disgust, when your partner says something or behaves in a way that normally would trigger you into rage or paralysis. You know, some people are very terrified of confrontations. Someone confronts you, you paralyze. That moment, understand that paralysis in your body. You have to come to understand that numbness, that paralysis, and then respond, actually respond. Or if you want to avoid someone, if taking responsibility, it's absolutely terrifying, or commitment, if you're terrified of commitment, when that moment comes, that commitment is required of you, instead of avoiding and running away, you stand and you feel that emotion, you feel that trigger, and you respond differently. If, it's so easy to talk about abuse because in abusive situations, the person that's consistently getting triggered gets triggered for their own projections, right? So I'm trying to avoid that, talking about those extreme situations. But if you call people names, if you call your girlfriend or your boyfriend names, meaning you degrade them, you call them stupid, you call them trash, you call them incapable, they have nothing, they have no skills, they are useless. If you're someone who says those things, then again, what does it get triggered in your body before you say that? That is what you need to stay with, sit with it, and respond differently. And then vice versa. If you're someone that allows poor treatment, what is that trigger that gets you to allow? It's fear. I know it's fear. It's fear of abandonment, fear of punishment, usually fear of abandonment. Sit. You have to sit with that discomfort and respond differently. It will take time. It takes a lot of time. A lot of time, I'm talking about like 6 months, 1 year, 2 years to fully teach your nervous system a different way of responding. So you might learn the understanding of, let's say, boundaries. If you don't know how to place your boundaries, you might learn them in like 6 months, but it will take a couple of years to really change and become that person that confidently sets and stands for her boundaries or his boundaries. Okay, because you're rewiring your nervous system. That's what you're doing. As they say, sit with your demons or sit with your pain means reacting differently to the same situation. This is the dissolution of the ego and jumping into the vastness of the unknown change. The process of change can be a delicate and confusing journey. At first, I wanted to say, you must have trust or faith in this new and unknown journey, that it will take you to a greater self. However, it is not about trust or faith, but about listening, about paying close attention to the signs of change, learning to decipher the authentic emotions versus the egoic fears and destructive narratives. So it is actually about learning to see in the signs of change that you're in the right place. It is very tough at first, like I just said. It's very difficult when you start doing it. Not just because you're rebuilding your nervous system, because you're entering into new territory. Going against the grain of your own destructive habits can be overwhelming. Your nervous system becomes ridden with fear and distress from disrupting the old impulses. Your nervous system will scream danger, while your inner voices will overwhelm you with narratives of punishment, pain, and betrayal. Those inner voices, they're so destructive, and they feed the nervous system. They go into a loop. You can get a panic attack. You can have a panic attack. Malditas esas voces. Malditas las voces. They be damned. However, beneath all the noise of the anarchy of the ego lies a path, signals, and little lights that let you know you're stepping in the right direction with a higher sense of self towards a greater way to live. They're little signals. At first, they're very faint, very hard to see amongst the noise of the ego. You may feel a sense of release or calmness in your chest beneath the fear, a sense of grounding or relaxation in your back or stomach beneath the sweaty palms or trembling of your nervous system. You may become out of breath or feel like shaking, trembling, crying when you first set boundaries. But slowly, that bodily pain, those sensations of terror would start to fade, and you will feel an empowerment coming from that. It is a courage you feel, man. It is the courage to face your fears. These are the signs, the little signs you follow. Hidden beneath fear, mostly it's fear that presents itself as rage, as avoidant, as numbness, as people-pleasing, as fawning. Because these overwhelming, destructive habits carry intense emotional triggers. And the thing is that you have to stand against them. If you want to avoid, you don't avoid. If you want to attack, you don't attack. If you want to numb yourself, you feel everything. If you want to oppress, you allow. If you want to control, you give space and freedom, especially for authenticity. If you feel jealous, you look within and you trust. If your narratives in your head scream insults, avoids, fawns for survival, you stand against those narratives because you will hear the voices. You will hear the voices saying, they are taking advantage of you. They are going to cheat on you. They are going to manipulate you. They are fooling you. You will hear the noise in your head, triggering you to attack, avoid, run away, because you also hear, you will be punished. You will be abandoned. So fawn. So people please. Right? You will hear those narratives. And you have to stand against those narratives. You must stay calm. Speak with respect. You stand and face it. You calmly acknowledge the person you fawn over. Do not compliment them until that feeling of fawning is gone away. Then you can compliment them. I used to do that. My dad, he needed to be glorious and always be admired. So fawning was something I learned to stay safe. Actually, it really works if you notice. If someone is acting out, when you start to compliment them and put them up in this pedestal and you say how great they are, their ego gets all puffed up and they get all happy. You can really manipulate people with compliments. The issue, you don't want to do that. But the issue is that sometimes we fawn out of a survival need to stay safe. So we'll admire someone. It's not necessarily true admiration, although you can truly admire someone and also have this wounding of fawning. And what you need to do is learn when am I admiring them and when am I fawning? And always react from the authentic admiration and do not feed the fawning. Catch yourself. I used to catch myself because this man I was with was so great in my eyes. He was so magnificent in so many ways. I would just fawn over him. And then I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, this fawning carries fear beneath it. I would only fawn when I was afraid of being abandoned, or, usually it's abandonment. And then I would fawn. And so then I started to shift. Anytime I would feel it, I wouldn't say anything. When I wouldn't feel that fear of needing to fawn, when I wouldn't feel it, I would then give a compliment. And then I would express my admiration. But when I'd feel this need, this impulse to fawn because I had like a base of fear, I would keep it, read myself, acknowledge that, and let it dissolve and dissipate. Never fawn. He was absolutely gorgeous. But good thing that I caught myself. Something about that was kind of intuitive. But don't do it. Don't do it. The journey of transcendence is never clear. And by transcendence, I mean change. Transcendence, it is the journey from going from one place to another. It's a transcending, right? It is a journey. So, it's not very clear. But glimpses arise, letting you know that you're on the right path. So it's actually not trust or faith, but evidence-based. It is the same as walking in a trail through the forest. At times, the path is obvious. Other times, the path disappears. You become more attentive to the signs. Usually, you can see markers on trees letting you know you're still on the right path. There's a sense of trust, but only because you trust that the visible signs, the evidence, will lead you in the right direction. Through such journey, you emerge with a more profound sense of self. You acquire a wisdom that one who flees walking through their fears will never come to understand. Within that wisdom, you learn that we are not actually arriving at a destination, but it is about the journey all along. You see, happiness is not a destination, but part of the present journey. It is a state you enter, as it is confidence, purpose, meaning, contentment, health, wealth, empowerment, and peace. These qualities aren't destinations, but daily practices. They are ongoing, nurtured daily, and can be considered a way of life. It is how you live, how you step into the world, how you interact with others. The way you do it is how you live in a state of confidence, of contentment, of peace, of meaning, of purpose. It's a way of life, it's a practice. Actual change is not about a constant change of your environment or change of jobs or partners. This can be a form of avoidant, or more accurately, running away from your problems. Of course, there's nothing wrong with changing external factors, as change happens both internally and externally. Growth is not linear. The actions to change require you to learn whether the external actions are authentic or avoidant. Coping and avoiding will ensure that your inner chaos will persist anywhere you go. Myself am hell. As long as our devil remains unnamed, left to toil unhampered in the caverns of the unconscious, we will do its work. I love it. James Hollis. I know it's very dramatic, but that's how it is. The misery that it creates, all those repressed wounds, all those unresolved wounds, they truly cause chaos and hell. You will be stuck in a cycle of destructive behaviors and never able to truly manifest what you feel you're capable of. Or better yet, unable to understand peace, fulfillment, empowerment, confidence, and joy, which are the simple but most powerful things life has to offer. Or even the simple but extremely important wealth that life has to offer, such as relationships, intimacy, food, nature, and family. Because we are our own hell. We are the makers of our problems. And I'm completely excluding those people who live without their basic needs met, who live in war-torn countries or under oppressive regimes. Those situations, you have no control out of them, and it is extremely difficult. Change is like being at the edge of a cliff, held back by ropes that you must untangle. For every step you take towards change, every dissolved, illusory identity you untangle, a rope that's wrapped around you in intricate knots must be untangled. And for every untangled rope that you undo, you drop closer to the cliff of the unknown. You feel the release, the space of freedom for fluidity, no longer tied to old rigid claws. You feel the potential, the possibility. However, the same release can feel terrifying, as if a parent is dropping you and no longer held by the arms of a safety net. These rigid ropes held you tight. And when you start to untangle them, you start to really feel the visceral understanding that only you are responsible for yourself, that only you can hold yourself to a high ground, to high standards, to the highest level of being. That sensation, standing at the edge of a precipice, feeling both the terror of the drop and the exhilaration of the expansive view, that's the paradoxical experience of transformative change. And the courage is that you do this untangling. You stand at the edge of the cliff and consciously and intentionally, there it is, intentionally jump. You do it willingly against your nervous system, despite the terror and fear that your distorted nervous system might scream. You still choose the unknown jump. And so, what happens when you untangle all the ropes holding you back, limiting you? You drop, you fly, you simultaneously expand and ground yourself. But it really does feel like this, because it's true that letting go of your illusions and stepping into your truth does feel expansive, energetic, and pleasurable. Really, you should try sometime, if you haven't already. That's how it feels. My personal experience. It truly feels like that. The only way, however, is to get through the fears, to untangle yourself from all your illusory ropes and jump into the unknown vastness. One can choose to go back into safety or forward towards growth. On a serious note, growth must be chosen again and again, and fear must be overcome again and again and again. Standing at the edge of the cliff, looking at the vastness of the unknown, holds a dual nature of potential. At this precipice, you simultaneously experience the limitless expanse, which is your potential, and the terrifying drop beneath you, the disillusion of your current identity. This creates that unique mixture of exhilaration and terror. Now, the necessary leap, which is the growth, requires a surrender. You cannot access the expansiveness of your potential without letting go of the rigid grounds of your familiar self. The expansiveness is both inviting and overwhelming. What makes this transformation so complex emotionally is that the very expansiveness that calls for us to let go also overwhelms our current capacity to contain it. It's like looking at a vast landscape that steers something deep within us, within our soul. It moves you, while also making us feel small and unprepared. The recognition that fear doesn't come solemnly from the potential for failure, but from the vastness of possibility itself. It is essential. The expanded self we might become has more capacity, more awareness, more responsibility. More responsibility. We're all afraid of more responsibility. So the expanded version of ourselves has more responsibility, more capacity, and more impact. Much more impact. For those that want to leave an impact, remember this. You have to overcome your fears. You have to walk to your truth, your self-truth, your authenticity, if you want to create more impact. If not, you will not be able to, because your demons will overpower you. So, this new sense of self that we fear holds more responsibility and more impact. And that increased vastness can feel overwhelming to our current sense of self. Psychologist Abraham Maslow called the Jonah complex the fear of our own greatness, just as the biblical Jonah fled from his own calling. We often retreat from the fullness of our potential because embracing it would require us to outgrow our current boundaries. This is frustrating because, again, people I've cared about could not outgrow their current limited boundaries. They were not really boundaries, they were limitations. And because they couldn't outgrow them, they couldn't expand, there was so much chaos that didn't have to be there because it was all self-made. It was the chaos within, the fear, the ego, everything repressing to the shadow created so much unnecessary suffering and chaos. And just because they couldn't stand, and I should be kinder because this journey is extremely difficult, but it's just frustrating because I really cared about them. The wave of terror that hits when facing expansion is a natural response to the dissolution of known boundaries. And your nervous system interprets this dissolution as a threat way before you recognize it as growth. We often prepare ourselves for the fear of failure. You hear that a lot, right? A reason people don't want to start things is because they're afraid of failing. It's happened to me. But we don't prepare for the sometimes more intense fear of expansion and becoming. So, the resistance to growth can be reframed not as a weakness or fear of failure, but as a natural response to the profound nature of transformation itself. Rather than saying, "Why am I afraid to succeed?" shift it to, "This fear is a natural response to the magnitude of change I am contemplating." So, welcome the fear. Feel it. When you feel fear, it means you're stirring something. You're stirring a limitation. You're getting somewhere and expanding yourself. So it's almost like befriending fear. I smile because I often talk about befriending your demons, right? Befriending your pain. And this is what it is. Do not understand it as something negative that needs to be avoided, but understand it as a limitation that is being broken and that you are growing beyond that. The experience of personal transformation, understanding the self, includes recognizing its fluid, evolving nature. Healing creates the conditions for transformation, and change involves surrendering to becoming someone we cannot imagine. The need for self-transcendence is a fundamental human need. And without it, we suffer one way or another. This is from Abraham Maslow. He believed that we are here. One of our purposes, and not even purposes, one of our important needs for the human experience is to transcend. And without transcending, you will be unhappy because you stay stagnant. You stay stuck to a past self that is no longer moving with the times because everything else is changing. Everything else is transforming. Everything, plants, planets, even ourselves, cities, animals, everything changes. So without transcending, we are unhappy. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. I think this is very important information. So hopefully you guys can take something. And that's it. I've said a lot. Thank you so much. Peace out.